All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I remember approximately 6 years ago, at the height of what the NBA media termed quote-unquote Linsanity, which was that time period with the New York Knicks, where Asian American basketball player Jeremy Lin pretty much took over the hearts and minds of all Knicks fans with a string of about 7 or 8 straight games of relatively high-level play while participating with the Knicks as a starting point guard, playing under Mike D'Antoni, in a system that was pretty much tailor-made to make any point guard inflate his stats by raising his usage rate and pretty much giving him a green light to take whatever shot he wanted. After a while, it became very apparent that the media was trying to play off of his race by pitting him not only against the most prominent black players in the NBA during that time period, but also historically. They were saying things like, Jeremy Lin has more points and assists in his first 7 games than Magic Johnson, and he's averaged more rebounds and assists in his first 7 games than Jason Kidd, things of that nature. That it was very obvious what they were trying to do. They were trying to bring in the Asian market, which is a huge market overseas, and that's understandable. But they were trying to do it at the expense of many of the black players, and after a while, they took it to another level in regards to the racial dynamic when there was an article written about Jeremy Lin, and the headline of the article was "A Chink in the Armor," which was obviously a very thinly veiled pun. It was a play on words in reference to what is commonly known as a slur against so-called Asians. Well, of course, that made the rounds. Why am I bringing all this up? Because ESPN has branded itself as an outlet that is forward-thinking, that is progressive, that is inclusive. And one of the main methods that they use to substantiate this sentiment is by claiming to promote the WNBA, or as I call it, the Women's National Basket Case Association. I did a video about the WNBA a couple of years ago pertaining to Miss Candace Wiggins, who formerly was a player in that league, who stated that in her mind, 98% of the female players in the WNBA were lesbian. The players spent their time trying to seduce the few heterosexual players that were in the WNBA into the lesbian life choice, the lesbian lifestyle. Of course, that made Candace Wiggins a pariah. ESPN, the network, barely covered the story, other than the Sports Center at the time, The Six, starring Michael Smith and Jamel Hill. They had Breanna Stewart, the rookie star of the Seattle Storm at the time, who basically denied the sentiment that most of the players in the WNBA were lesbian. So that brings us to this story right here with Miss Sue Bird, who quote-unquote came out of the closet a couple of years ago as a lesbian. That's her business, whatever. I mean, but to be quite frank with you, a WNBA player coming out of the closet as a lesbian, that's like Wesley Snipes coming out of the closet as a black man. I mean, is that supposed to surprise me? That you're a lesbian. That's your business, but whatever. But pay very close attention, because once again, this network is going to show you how hypocritical they are. They're going to mock Sue Bird for coming out of the closet as a lesbian, but in a very cryptic way. In the same way that they mocked Jeremy Lin as an Asian in the mainstream liberal sports media, despite the fact that they feted him for his accomplishments, we're going to see ESPN on this television show hosted by Rachel Nichols pretty much do the same thing. We know that one of the common colloquialisms for a lesbian is a quote-unquote stud. Let's see what they do here with Sue Bird.
So, Sue Bird is the oldest player in the WNBA, but if you think she's on some kind of retirement swan song tour, well, I'll let you tell her that. And also, please give me 10 to 15 minutes to clear the room first. This is a player who has collected 4 Olympic gold medals, 2 WNBA titles, 11 All-Star nods. And last night, she made it absolutely, abundantly clear she's out for more. And if you didn't watch it live, allow me to set the scene for you. This was Game 5.
Hey guys, do you see the subtitle at the bottom? It says, Rachel, Sue Bird is a stud. Now, of course, they have the plausible deniability that they're using the term stud as a compliment to state that Sue Bird is a go-getter. She's a great player. She takes over the game. She's a quote-unquote stud. But we all know that this is a play on words. This is a pun, because Sue Bird recently came out of the closet as a lesbian. So they're mocking her for being a lesbian. This is what ESPN is doing.
5 of the best of 5 series between Seattle and Phoenix to determine who would go to the finals.
Diana Taurasi, by the way, who we just saw. Let me rewind it back just a little bit.
To say that between Seattle and Phoenix.
This is Diana Taurasi, who also came out of the closet pretty much as a lesbian a couple of years ago. I believe that her quote-unquote wife is or was one of her teammates. I'm not quite sure if she's still on the team. I think her name was Penny Taylor. She was a player from Australia who was formerly married to a man until Diana Taurasi stole her from her former husband. So that's what goes on in the WNBA.
And Phoenix to determine who would go to the finals. To say the series has been competitive is an understatement. In Game 4, Bird's own teammate, Breanna Stewart, broke her nose. Now, Bird has actually broken her nose before several times, but that doesn't mean it is ideal to have blood gushing down your face.
Once again, these are the WNBA playoffs. Do you see how many empty seats are in the arena? Let me rewind it back a little bit.
Down your face. Bird's own teammate, Breanna Stewart, broke her nose. Now, Bird has actually broken her nose before, so...
Now, if you can see the crowd there, everything that's purple is an empty seat. These are the finals, or I believe at this time, the conference finals in the WNBA playoffs. This league will never, ever take off. All it is an experiment to promote lesbianism. That's all it is. Some people might not understand that. It's okay.
Or several times, but that doesn't mean it is ideal to have blood gushing down your face, nor to have to play your next game in a protective mask. And clearly the mask, or something, was initially bothering Bird last night, because at one point she missed 8 consecutive shots. Did not look great for her, or for the Storm, who were down by 11 in the first half. And oh, by the way, did I mention on the other side of the court was Diana Taurasi, arguably the best and most relentless women's basketball player of all time.
I can't front. Diana Taurasi can get down. She's like the WNBA version of Larry Bird. Like, this chick can really get down.
Taurasi went into last night a perfect 13-0 in winner-take-all elimination games. That's an insane stat, and certainly appeared en route to making that 14-0 until Bird simply just said, no. I'm not sure how else to explain it, because that is what happened. In the final 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, Bird was brilliant, scoring...
Now, once again, we see the same caption at the bottom of the screen. Rachel, Sue Bird is a stud. I have a hard time believing that Rachel Nichols would write something like this. I believe that it was some smart-ass intern in the back. But Rachel Nichols is supposed to be up on this, because the sentiment here runs contrary to what ESPN claims to be about. But in all actuality, the joke is on the masses of people that take this nonsense seriously. The so-called WNBA. A bunch of females who, quite honestly, are dealing with heavy penis envy and wish that they were men. Just my view of it.
14 of her 22 points with shots like this. And this.
Is that Larry Bird?
And this.
Gotta get a handoff, right? At least, right?
And this little dagger right here. By the time it was over, Key Arena was going bonkers, as was the internet. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Isaiah Thomas.
Now, brothers, this is the problem right here. The problem is not the so-called liberal female or Luciferian female. Once again, the problem is weak, spineless, so-called liberal black males like this. These are your heroes. A lot of you so-called black men out here, you idolize these guys. LeBron James and Kobe and Isaiah Thomas, so-called athletes who know where their bread is buttered. They're Luciferians their damn selves. And they have to side with the so-called feminist agenda that the woman is not only equal to the man, quote-unquote, but that she is above the man. And this is taking the onus off of the true power and splendor of the woman, that being as a wife and a mother in order. That's where she's needed. That's why there are so many so-called broken homes out here in America. And so many of these women are hooked on antidepressants because they're caught up in that shitstorm mentality of trying to be a man as opposed to loving who they are as women. But once again, look at these guys here. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Isaiah Thomas, co-signing this buffoonery. But then again, the NBA probably has many of their more prominent players send out these tweets to act as if they're supporting the WNBA. Because the WNBA needs as much support as they can get. But if I be a betting man, these guys are just simps. These are just liberal, prominent black males who are trying to push that Luciferian ideology of the woman can do whatever the man can do. Just because a woman can do certain things that the man is doing in regards to professional sports does not mean that she should be trying to do that. A man may be able to glue fake hair into somebody's scalp, but that doesn't mean that that's what he should be trying to do. You understand what I'm saying? The roles in this society are totally thrown off, and a lot of the components of the liberal sports media are the reason for that, because they promote a lot of this nonsense. The reason why I highlight this little subtitle at the bottom is because it's an inside joke that they're playing games with you. They're calling this person, Sue Bird, a stud, a so-called lesbian. They're mocking her for coming out of the closet.
Thomas repping for a statue. Although my favorite might have been this one from our friend Shea Serrano. And now Bird and the store move on.
Now look at this nonsense. I would like to formally apologize to Sue Bird for not naming all 3 of my sons after Sue Bird. This is a person here, whoever this person is, Shea Serrano, who has no respect for the manhood of his sons. None whatsoever.
Move on to the finals to face the Washington Mystics. And surely, if Seattle wins, there will be someone who asks Bird if she wants to go out like that, to walk off the court and retire the champion that she is. It's not a ridiculous question. It's just a rhetorical one. Because Sue Bird is not close to done, and how lucky that is for the rest of us. I mean, it really has been so much fun watching these WNBA playoffs. The two, I would say conference finals, but they don't do it by conferences anymore, but the 2 series that got us to the finals both went to best of 5, that 5th decisive game. What, though, do you think, like, with all this interest in the league, the ratings are up, what is the future, though, for the WNBA? Because ratings are one thing. Where do you think the league is actually going right now?
I think
the future for the WNBA is that the NBA is going to have to think of a mass marketing scheme to try to elevate the exposure that the WNBA is getting, because on its own merits, no one is truly interested. So expect many of the more prominent players in the NBA to become more directly involved in marketing the WNBA. That's the first step.
But I think this is the interesting conversation we've had all year long about the players feeling like they're not paid well or play well as well as they should be, right?
Well, you know what, Amin Al-Hassan? How much you're paid is not based on how you feel. It's based off of how much interest you can garner for your league. It's based on viewership. Then you can say, well, we're not getting a big enough piece of the pie. I don't think that they have an understanding of how big a piece of the pie they deserve, because they don't know how much money their league is making, or they don't care.
Right. And so this is the time where they probably have the most leverage. You know, WNBA players have something that no other professional sports league has, which is I make most of my money elsewhere, not doing this. So they are uniquely equipped to say, you know what, we're going on strike until we can come to terms on the CBA at a more equitable level. Maybe it's...
Amin Al-Hassan, even you don't believe that bullshit. Even you don't believe that, but I understand you have to keep your job.
Maybe it's not 50-50, but it's definitely better than the 20-some% they get right now. And so this is the time when interest is high, when they've got some momentum, that they have the power and the leverage to.
And I think it's a chicken and egg theory. I think the more you watch the WNBA...
Bullshit like this is exactly why people will never ever take the WNBA seriously. These broads were complaining about their flights being delayed or being canceled or what have you. This is all the most prominent male basketball players went through from the 60s all the way through the late 80s. I mean, it's a big joke, really.
NBA, particularly this year, and you look at the star power and the skill level of these young ladies, the more the ratings are up, that means more people go to the games. You see that crowd last night at Key Arena?
It's crazy.
It is.
When you tell me that the ratings went up, all that tells me is that somebody was watching NBA TV, watching Hardwood Classics, fell asleep, and the TV was still on the same channel when the WNBA game came on. Because ain't no way in the world anybody is saying, oh shit, the WNBA playoffs are on. Give me my remote. Let's change the channel.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, it wasn't exactly 96 NBA Finals, MJ, Peyton, and Sean Kemp,
I'll
but
tell
man, you closed your eyes at one point.
I totally agree. So I think they've got to take it.
Look at all the empty seats at the top. This is supposed to be the conference finals. When you're in a top-notch league that's garnering a lot of attention, you're not supposed to have any empty seats. And then it also becomes a matter of how much did the tickets cost for these fans to attend. How many of these tickets were actually giveaways?
Take advantage of the fact that right now, the more basketball is at its peak right now and growing with both the WNBA and the NBA. And I do think they have to take advantage of of what we're seeing, because this is must-watch TV. I can't wait for the finals because of Deladonna's hurt. We know she's going to be not at 100%, but the atmosphere in both arenas probably should be electric, and I think they do have to take advantage of this right now. I'm a junkie, and I love watching these ladies play.
So the Mystics, by the way, you mentioned the arenas. The Mystics will...
Well, I agree with you. You said that you're a junkie. That's why you love watching them play. You have to be a crackhead to watch this bullshit.
Will be playing at George Mason's facility for the first couple of games because Capitol Arena is under renovations. Now, I'm someone who grew up in the D.C. area, and almost every sports team played outside of the actual district during that time, so that's not that unusual. It is interesting, though, to take a look. As you mentioned, the collective bargaining agreement, I believe either side can opt out of it this fall. That could kind of open the way for these salary discussions, as Amin referenced. It's not, and this is so important, guys, WNBA players are not looking to get paid the exact same or on the same scale as NBA players.
We know that shit. You don't even have to explain that. You have to be a fucking fool to even come into an office and make that type of proclamation that you want to be paid as the same as the men. But I'll say this, some of the dumber members of the WNBA have actually tried to imply that they should be paid on the level of some of the lower level players in the NBA. Some of them have done that, like Skylar Diggins and a couple of other morons.
They are aware the interest in the game is different. What they want is...
No, ma'am. The interest in the game is not different. The interest in the game is literally miles apart. Nobody cares about the WNBA. Nobody cares. Unless you're like a basketball crackhead. Nobody's watching that bullshit.
Is the revenue sharing, the percentages to be more similar. So as Amin mentioned, NBA players get 50% of total basketball revenue, and the WNBA players, it's not public. We don't know for sure. Forbes magazine did a pretty exhaustive study, and they think it's around 25% of that.
Yeah, well, you know what? Forbes magazine is gassing up these female NBA players to get their feelings hurt because they're only making about $25 million a year. And there's no way in the world that NBA owners are going to break half with the WNBA players when they still have to pay for the facilities and to stage the events. By the time they do all that, they're losing money. There's no doubt about it. A lot of these bros are lucky to be getting paid anything.
Of basketball revenue. That's obviously a big difference. Something a lot of WNBA players have been very vocal about. Candace Parker, I think it's interesting, though, because she's on our show a lot, has said, I do want to be careful, just to be sort of an alternate voice. She obviously wants WNBA players to be paid more, but she said, I am aware that when the NBA was in its opening decades, NBA players flew commercial, just like WNBA players do now.
Right, and the WNBA players have been making that excuse for many years, but let's understand something. There's a big difference between what the NBA was in the late 40s throughout the 50s and what the WNBA is right now. The WNBA is about 20 years deep into their existence, but they have cable television, they have social media, they have the internet, they have word of mouth to market themselves, and they still have not taken off. When the NBA was a fledgling league in the late 40s throughout the 50s, they understood that we have to change our game. That's why they started to allow so-called black players into the league. And then it built up eventually into the late 70s where you had Larry Bird and Magic Johnson come into the league. And they were able to push their product on television. David Stern understood how to market the league properly. He created that racial dynamic between Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, or at least he played it up. And then Jordan came into the league in 84. You had Patrick Ewing come into the league in 85, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley in 84, John Stockton. So they had an influx of players that people were interested in. There's no one coming into the WNBA that anybody is interested in because who are you going to market your league to? You can't market it to men because men don't care. You can't market it to straight women because straight women don't care. You have to market it to children and lesbians. So your constituency, your market is so small, they're never going to take on the same allure as the men, ever. Because when you're talking about male basketball players, men watch and heterosexual women watch. Because the heterosexual women are turned on by the men. Who's going to watch that bullshit in the WNBA? Nobody.
Do now. NBA players were paid a fraction of what today's NBA players
was
paid.
it the 89 Pistons? That was the first team that had their own charter plane.
Right.
Yeah, so
Exactly. And before that, they were dealing with flight delays and cancellations, and sometimes you would get to the arena 2 hours before the game and they played. They didn't say, oh man, this is going to be a health issue. Once again, If you're not tough enough to deal with it, stop complaining.
So yeah, I mean, her point is just, and I think it's just a good layered part of this discussion. Candace certainly would like to see her fellow players get a higher share of revenue. That's not her point. Her point is, look, we have to have perspective on where the league is. I think the truth will land somewhere in the middle, right? Isn't it?
No, the truth is going to land smack dab on your forehead, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt when it land there, too.
Doesn't it always land somewhere between good negotiators?
But you got to get the conversation.
As entertainment, it is.
I mean, oh, Hassan, you know better. I could tell by the look on your face. You're like, let me just say anything so that I can keep my job.
It has been thoroughly entertaining, and that's the start for people being...
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's been so good. I can't wait for these finals.
Rachel Nichols, you're full of shit. I could look at your face and see that you're full of shit. You don't even really want to cover the WNBA. You like talking about those big black men in the NBA. That's what you want to talk about. On the panel, dressed up in a nightgown. Like, what's up with some of these chicks and how they dressing, brothers? What's going on? This bro got a nightgown on. But anyway, peace.